Okay, so this recording is going to go through chapter 1 and chapter 2, and then tomorrow there will be a recording for chapter 3 and chapter 4. Remember, for each chapter, not only do you need to highlight or underline, but you need to do an annotation 3 times for each chapter. So it's 3 for each chapter times 4 chapters is 12. And then you're going to annotate the graphs. So let's go ahead and get started. So chapter 1 is the introduction. The title of the reading is The Effects of Climate Change. So here we go. Earth's climate is changing. In the last 100 years, the average temperature of our planet has increased by at least 0.8 degrees Celsius or 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit. And climate scientists say that global temperatures will continue to rise by at least a few more degrees in coming years. That may not sound like much, but even a small change in global temperatures has a large effect on the atmosphere, biosphere, geosphere, and hydrosphere on our planet. These changes will affect the resources and conditions people depend on. Remember, biosphere means our life. Geo is talking about all the geography and the terrain, and hydrosphere is anything that has to do with water. That's what hydro means. Second paragraph. A warming climate changes the patterns of where living things on Earth can survive. By increasing the temperature of the planet, climate change forces many species to move or risk dying out. And in some cases, species like the polar bears can be left with no habitat at all. A warming climate also melts glaciers around the world, causing sea levels to rise. As the oceans take up more space, some coastal cities may end up underwater. In addition, a warming climate increases the temperature of Earth's oceans and puts more water in the atmosphere, causing more extreme weather around the globe. A wetter atmosphere means more storms, droughts, and flooding, all of which threaten the way humans live. We are going to get rid of this last sentence. Don't forget to annotate the paragraphs in chapter 1, as well as this graph. Looking at this graph, we're talking about the global average temperatures. We have the number of years going along the x-axis and the temperature on the y. And it says this graph shows the change in global temperature in degrees Celsius between the years 1880 and 2009. And this picture goes along with our polar bears. It says as global temperatures rise and sea ice melts, polar bears have fewer places to live and hunt for food. Chapter 2, Warming and Habitat Loss. Changing global temperatures mean changing habitats, and this can be bad news for living things. A living thing's habitat is more than just the place where it lives. Habitat includes everything an animal or plant needs for its survival, such as food sources, shelter, and lots of other factors. This graph compares how much of the Arctic Ocean was covered by ice in different years between 2002 and 2013. The measurements were all taken at the same time of year. It's easy to see how a warming climate trend would cause polar bears to lose their habitat. Warmer temperatures cause more ice to melt. Ice is an essential part of the polar bear habitat. The bears walk out onto the ice that covers the Arctic Ocean in winter in order to reach the seals that they kill and eat. Less ice means less habitat for polar bears. It's harder to understand why a warming climate trend causes habitat loss for other things, but it does. Temperature is an important part of habitat, and some species are very sensitive to changes in temperature. For example, salmon depend on cold water streams. Young salmon die if the water in the stream becomes too warm for them. Global warming causes habitat in other ways too. For example, weather patterns change as the climate warms, making some places wetter and others drier. When habitats become wetter or drier than the animals and plants that live in them are used to, the habitats can become unlivable for those species. Climate change benefits some species as well, especially species that reproduce quickly, can survive in a range of habitats, or do well in warmer areas. For example, the populations of some kinds of mosquitoes, bullfrogs, sea stars, jellies, and kudzu plants are increasing. As their habitats change due to warming, some plants and animals have already begun shifting the areas where they live. Many are moving toward the poles where temperatures are cooler. Others are moving higher up mountains. However, a mountain lion is only so high. Once they have reached the top of the mountain, there's nowhere higher for them to go. Climate change is likely to cause many species to become extinct. So again, here's our picture of the salmon. It says young salmon need cold stream water to survive. And this is a pike, and it says pikes are small animals related to rabbits that live in the mountains. As the climate warms, pikes are beginning to move higher up the mountain where the temperatures are colder. We are going to stop at chapter 2 for today. Please remember that the directions state that you are to underline or highlight, and then you are to do 3 annotations in each chapter, and then you are to annotate each graph. So for today, knowing that we've read 2 chapters and had 2 graphs, you should have a total of 8 annotations.